And obviously, I'm letting everyone know that this meeting is being recorded and transcribed. So welcome, everyone, and welcome to our guest speaker, Chris Myers, who's talking on information security today. You should all have read his background of his many years in the industry. So without further ado, I'll pass you on to Chris.
Hi, guys. So what I wanted to talk to you today was about ethical developments within artificial intelligence. There's a lot of conversation going on a lot of levels dealing with how we deal with AI ethically and what mechanisms need to be in place, what mechanisms are missing at this point in time. So going into the main crux of the issue is, the big question is, how do we know that the information provided by artificial intelligence is true, accurate, and non-biased? You should all know that AI doesn't have a conscience, it's not socially aware, but also it doesn't necessarily have the appropriate context or some of the niceties of social society, such as a moral compass. One of the things people are talking about is it's not racially aware either. So sometimes it's not appropriate to the audience it's dealing with. There are other aspects to it that we're aware of. So we know that AI can be adjusted. Just think about the changes to the algorithm being made on X and Musk in order to support Trump and then not support Trump. The other thing that there's a lot of concern about at the moment is AI learning. A lot of the large language models are being reused by other AI solutions. And because they're reusing somebody else's large language model, they tend to accept that as truth without any fact checking. Also, there's a conversation going around about uncorroborated literary works where Meta has been using LibGem to train its AI, and the authors are all saying, well, you're using that without my authority. But also there's kind of no accuracy checking as to whether what those authors have said is true, relevant, and accurate. So there's a lot of conversations going around about AI's ability to draw conclusions based on the additional human guidance it gets during its machine learning phases. And because of all this, people are starting to say that AI may do more harm than economic good to society because society's needs are not the primary concern of AI. So there's also currently no requirement to ensure that AI programs aren't encoded consciously or unconsciously with structural biases. All you've got to look at is Elon Musk, who deliberately changed his algorithm so that the answers would be supportive of Donald Trump when he was going for his election, for example. Elon Musk is just at the top of my mind, so sorry if I go back to him. So one of the other big questions for the security world at the moment is that AI tools are now being used both for defense and for attack. So the AI tools being used by the attackers are using the same large language models and the same algorithms as the AI tools used by the defenders. And there's a danger that it may be a self-proving prophecy, and that it may get into a spiral of increasing attack, increasing defense, and very soon go totally out of control or produce a stalemate where neither of them will do the job properly. So there's a lot of conversation in the backgrounds of this, and a lot of responses going on trying to address this issue. So one of the ones that has recently appeared, as recently as June this year, is a group in Canada looking at deceptive AI behavior. And there's a guy there called forgive me, I forget his name, Al Yoshua Bengio, who is supposed to be one of the godfathers, Yoshio Bengio, who's supposed to be one of the godfathers of AI. And he thinks that there's issues with the trajectory of AI development. and he's concerned about deceptive behaviors and criticizing commercial pressures driving industry to roll out AI at the cost of all of these considerations. So they now want to devise a new model that's actually going to try and look at various AI solutions to find out if any of this stuff is going on in the background and to validate those AI solutions. So he's got a laboratory setting up a review of all these solutions, trying to find out which ones are correct and which ones aren't. So one of the things he said is the urgency for this project, it stems from all these disturbing trends that AI models have displayed signs of strategic deception. One of the issues that he's raised is that an instance where the AI solution actually tried to blackmail the engineers from attempting to preserve from a simulated test they ran, attempting to preserve the existence of the AI, and the AI actually threatened retaliation if they tried to shut it down, which is a little bit alarming. And apparently OpenAI's O3 model also allegedly refused direct shutdown commands, according to a report by one of the AI testing firms. And so there's this big concern that AI isn't going to support society, isn't going to support human beings, but is actually, in fact, is going to compete with them and very quickly become smarter than us. And then what happens next? So this guy in the University of Montreal, as I said, is now looking for some way of validating AI solutions. And he set up a lab that's supposed to be going through various ways of validating these bits and pieces. Changing slant from what's happening in Canada to what's happening in UK, in May of this year, government has been looking at AI ethics, and they've been ramping up their AI agenda, and they've got a sharp focus on Gen AI at the moment. The idea is to spark innovation, create jobs, modernize public services, and all the goodly bits and pieces behind that. And in May of this year, they announced the trial of their tool in 25 local councils, a tool called Minute. And they say this is part of the broader Humphrey suite of generative AI tools, for those people who are aware of it, which is being deployed across Whitehall. The idea is to reduce admin burdens, speed decision-making, improve services. In parallel to this, we're strengthening our international AI collaboration, with public research organisations being invited to bid to connect with EU supercomputers, reinforcing cooperation in AI research and development. The downside of this is that a recent Freedom of Information Act retrieval by Parliament Street indicates that not one single ministerial government department employs an AI ethics officer. So most of the high-profile departments have no such post, which includes the Cabinet Office, the Ministry of Defence, Department of Health and Social Care, and the Department for Works and Pensions. So this is kind of where a lot of this, whoa, hang on a minute, what's happening with the ethics behind this type question is coming from. It's been suggested by this background information that the deployment of Gen AI in the government department means they need rigorous ethical governance based on principles of fairness, transparency, and accountability. And the lack of dedicated AI ethic officers suggests that there's insufficient thought being given to the possibilities of algorithmic bias, privacy breaches, and opaque decision-making processes. And they're saying that, of course, this isn't new, but they're being amplified by Gen AI's complexity and scale. And some of the examples they're putting out is that algorithmic bias arising from bias training data has resulted in some famously unfair outcomes. Throwing into the mix the opacity of many models, and there's an accountability nightmare, they say. And it's all about who's responsible when AI-driven decisions cause harm, and how can citizens seek redress. Nick Clegg kind of encapsulated this by arguing that requiring AI companies to obtain copyright permissions for all training data would kill the industry. And OpenAI has made similar arguments despite accusing competitors of model theft. So summing this up in AI and democratic accountability, the government is saying that the industry is patently unwilling to self-regulate, and the onus is on organizations to enforce their own ethical AI use. However, while chief data officers hold overarching AI governance responsibility, no one, as they've said, is specifically tasked with the ethics and the oversight in the government departments. This leaves a vacancy for some of us guys, I guess. They're saying the gap is dangerous given the rapid adoption of AI in the government, and democratic accountability is driving their concerns. They also say that because of this, public trust in government institutes is scraping the floor. Might be because of the politicians, but because of this, they say. And that the consent and trust are the foundations of that democratic governance. So there is a guy called Stuart Harvey, who's the CEO of data. I can never say this word. Datactics. That's the word. Who's emphasizing the importance of these AI officers and saying much the same thing about democratic accountability. And other people, such as the managing director of Soho UK, are also supporting this kind of stance. Other areas where this is of concern is, of course, other countries, not least of which is the European Commission. The European Commission believes that the AI presents three major areas of ethical concern, which are privacy and surveillance, bias and discrimination, and the role of human judgment. They say that AI not only replicates human biases, but it also confers on these biases scientific credibility, making it seem that their predictions and judgments have an objective status. Again, they note that companies are basically self-policing, relying on existing laws and market forces, such as negative reaction, and the demands of highly prized technical talent, they say, is keeping them in line. The European Commission, in response to this, is setting up a regulatory framework for the ethical use of AI, which anybody who does the business in Europe or with Europe will be forced to comply with. They cite high costs of implementation challenges, lack of creation and emotion, job displacement, reduced human involvement, ethical and privacy concerns, bias in AI algorithms, decreased human skill development of areas that their act should be addressing. So this AI Act in the EU actually came into force on the 1st of August 2024, but will not be fully applicable for 2 years. So they're talking about it coming into full force on the 2nd of August 2026, with some minor exceptions to it. So The AI, they're saying that their AI Act is the first ever legal framework on AI, addressing the risks of AI and positions Europe to play a leading role globally, but they would say that. And they also say it's the first ever comprehensive legal framework worldwide, with the aim of the rules being to foster trustworthy in AI in Europe. In order to smooth the move to the AI Act, the EC has also introduced something called the AI Pact, which is kind of an interim measure, and it encourages and supports organisations to plan ahead for the implementation of the Act. And it's structured around two main pillars: gathering and exchanging information with the AI Pact network, and facilitating and communicating company pledges. So the AI Act itself is EU Regulation 2024/1689 for anybody who's interested, and it lays down the harmonizing rules for artificial intelligence within Europe. And they say together they guarantee safety, fundamental rights and human-centric AI, strengthen uptake, investment and innovation across Europe. One of the reiterations at the end of this bit is that one of the questions they're asking is, why do they need rules on artificial intelligence? They say they say that there's half a dozen items that are key to this, and that's the AI Act ensures the Europeans can trust what AI has to offer. Whilst most AI systems pose limited to no risk and can contribute to solving many societal challenges, certain AI systems create risks that must be addressed to avoid undesirable outcomes. They're saying it's also often not possible to find out why an AI system has made a decision or prediction, or why it's taken a particular action. And therefore, it may become difficult to assess if someone has been unfairly disadvantaged for a hiring decision, for example, or in an application for public benefit scheme. I mean, one of the other things is that AI is now being used for recruitment campaigns, and the AI engines are being used to select people for interview. And they say, although existing legislation provides some protection, it's insufficient to address the specific challenges that are now being brought about. I'm just skipping a couple of pages because I'm noting the time, that's all. So in terms of governance and implementation, the European AI Office and its authorities of the member states are responsible for implementing, supervising and enforcing the Act. The board, the scientific panel and the advisory forum steer and advise the governance. And I was just going to say, I mentioned before that there's some exceptions at the moment to the implementation, and that's prohibitions and AI literacy obligations are entered into the application from the 2nd of February 2025. So they're there now. The governance rules and obligations for general purpose AI models become applicable in August 2025. And the rules for high risk AI systems embedded into regulated products have an extended transition period until the 2nd of August 2027, as I said. On the back of this, another organisation that's looking at this is the Institute for Ethics in AI, which is part of the University of Oxford. They've been looking at AI in social care because there's been a big rollout in the use of AI in social care. One of which is that they've got an app monitoring people in sleep that detects if they're in pain. So they're looking at some of these things, saying, how valid is AI in these circumstances? They're saying that AI can only be part of the solution, but shouldn't be the whole solution. They mentioned biases, amplifying discrimination, prejudice, stereotyping, and issues with sharing personal data with the technology. Again, they say there's no official government policy or guidance, and they need to be very careful on what choices people make in the use of AI, where they use it, how they use it, and how they value the information that AI gives them. As part of the AI and Social Care Summit, it was noted that in February of this year, the UK and US governments refused to sign an international AI declaration in Paris, which pledged open, inclusive, and ethical approach to the technology development, which kind of flies in the face of the EU legislation that they're trying to bring out. Oops. And in March, the UK government announced it would take a test and learn approach to funding of AI, external in the public sector, in order to push innovation. So there's a lot of toing and throwing in this, and a lot of positioning by people on both sides of it. The Department of Health and Social Care said they will harness cutting-edge technology to transform social care. They will make better use of AI in social care. And this is exactly the kind of transformation they're championing to their 10-year health plan. Another one, which you might have seen very recently, as April of 25, is the government is currently trialing a murder prediction tool, which is claimed is based on racist data. So it's a data-driven initiative identifying individuals most likely to commit murder. Originally, it was called the Homicidal Prediction Project and has been rebranded as Sharing Data to Improve Risk Assessment. So its core mission is to use algorithms and personal data to predict serious violent crime before it happens. Big Brother is watching you. The project is processing vast data sets of information from the Probation Service, the Police National Computer, and the Greater Manchester Police. They insist that data is only from individuals with at least one criminal conviction. However, other people are saying the data is wider than that. So they're saying that some of the data sharing includes references to personal data, such as the age at which a person first appeared as a victim, including victims of domestic abuse, as well as records of first police contact regarding conviction status. They also say that the program analyzes special categories of personal data, such as mental health conditions, addiction, suicide, disability, and incidents of self-harm. The MOJ says the tool is not being used operationally and is strictly for academic and methodological evaluation. But of course, there are calls for it to immediately cease and to investigate welfare services rather than dodgy and racist AI and algorithms. Another thing that's happening at the moment is a new Euro chatbot. So there's a group of European media organizations who've launched something called Chat Europe. And the whole point of this new European chatbot is to counter online disinformation. It's basically being designed between Romania and the French. And the tool is supposed to enable natural human-like conversations that help people access credible information in their own language. So it currently has English, French, German, Italian, Polish, Romanian, and Spanish variants of it. And they say that the difference between this and other chatbots like ChatGPT is that it's fed only verifiable and trusted sources. And so you should be able to ask a question and get a response free from bias in theory. But then again, where's that verifiable and trusted source coming from? It's all based on a French LLM. and trained on news articles produced by respected news fake news coming from platforms such as X, TikTok, and Facebook, for example. But that's kind of the information I wanted to put forward today, just to say that there's a lot of conversation going on about the ethical use of artificial intelligence. A lot of the questions are, who should be in charge of that ethics? Who should manage that ethics? Who has the capability to provide that ethical governance? And the other side of that is, where is the technology that implements this? Who provides the technology that implements this? Gatekeeper, or are we talking about a new strand of people? How do you devise who's ethically capable of delivering that role in the first place? And that, guys, is kind of about as far as I wanted to go for today. So I guess it's open to questions and discussion.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, for that interesting webinar. So, as you say, questions to the floor.
It's a lot to take in, but as I say, it's mainly aware of this ethical question and a lot of murmurings in the background of people starting to set things in place to question the validity of these things. And it's this big question of, because we can go there, should we be going there?
Okay, Chris, it's Andrew, I've got a point to raise for you.
Yeah.
You can have a company that does all the right things. It finds an open AI model. It's got really, really good data that's been curated to do all of the training. You've got all of that training data available. You've got all of the open weights available. You know exactly how the model's been built, and it's got no biases or problematic data or anything. It is the perfect model that the best model you can think of. Now, the trouble is that model embeds lots of nuances and everything, and all of the weights are carefully balanced based on the training data and that. But what companies then do is they think, oh, we've got this perfect model, and then they retrain it. And retraining is a destructive process. And even if their data is good, when they're retraining, they can accidentally break the nuances and everything within the model itself and actually introduce effectively false bias by accidentally shifting how the information's perceived within the model. And a lot of companies don't understand how destructive retraining a model or fine-tuning a model can be. So in those instances, they appear to be doing all the right things, but they're ending up with a model that ultimately is going to be biased.
Yeah, and the other side of that is, although they're taking this goodly model, they haven't necessarily put it in the same environment with the same nuances, with the same needs, and so all of their tweaking doesn't necessarily take into account what their needs are as opposed to what that model is providing, and as you say, can be doing more harm than good, which then goes all the way back to this question of who manages it, who controls it, and who validates it.
Yeah, yeah. And we've also got the issue now is where you were saying that existing models to some degree are biased. Those models are being used to generate more content. AI companies are still scraping the internet trying to find new data, new information to train their models on, which means that they're going to be hoovering up all of this new content that's been generated by biased models, which means the models are going to get more biased data, which generates more biased content, which is then slurped up by the AI companies for training and makes the models even more biased. So how can we get out of this situation where we're just accumulating more and more AI slop, as they call it, for training models, because there's only so much information that you can use to train a model on.
And for us as professionals, it's where does our role sit within that model? How much of this rests with us? How much of this rests with somebody else? And who do we advise to do what, where, and when? But even complicating this still further, I don't know if anybody's heard about the fact that there's a conversation going on at the moment that Q Day is arriving. And that is going to be the day when attackers are going to be able to use quantum computing to break down every single crypto algorithm used in the defense of systems, your password defense, your cryptocurrencies and all this thing. And they're saying that once they attach the AI model and the quantum computing model together, all bets are off and we can't handle any of this anyway. It's starting to be a real nightmare that a lot of people are starting to get hot under the collar about, but have no solutions for.
Yeah, but at the same time, a lot of people are becoming overly scared. Yeah, they are giving a lot of credence to AI models that AI models do not deserve. AI models are not conscious, they're not aware, they're not thinking. They are still very complicated, but all they're doing is predicting text based on the text that came before in a sequence. Yeah, they're not going to take over the world anytime soon by predicting text. So, and the thing is as well is with AI models work on numeric tokens and things. So trying to get AI models to work with specific data, for example, words, numbers, financial information, AI models are not good at doing that because they don't see the numbers, they don't see the individual words, they just see the token IDs. And being able to work with that kind of concrete data is really difficult. And what the models are really good at is the generic generic text. They can sort of base their output on the context of text. They can base it on certain concepts that they've learned and developed. But at the end of the day, they're still just predicting based on the tokens, and it's like we don't understand how these LLMs are actually filtering the data through their networks. So how do we test whether a model is going to produce ethical answers? How do we determine whether you can run 1,000 tests against a model and nothing's biased, but then as soon as you put it into production, how do you know it's not going to start being biased? Yeah, you can't test everything that a model can do.
And here is a nightmare for these people: is how far do they go? How far should they go? And there's all the background stuff as what is our involvement as developers? What is our involvement in terms of educating the customer base? And this really isn't purely and simply an AI issue. I mean, how many times have we heard people say, I looked it up on Google, so it must be right? That was before AI was ever thought of. So the point is, this question at the back is, who does what? How far do we go? Are we doing enough fast enough? And is it a question of education? Is it a question of governance? Is it a question of guidance? Is it a question of, whoa, slow down, you're going too fast, too quickly? Or you really should not be adding A, B, and C to make Z? So it's really this conversation that I wanted to prompt and ask people, where are we as developers involved in this chain? Where should we be involved? How concerned are we as a society?
And also, Chris, I would add about the process, sort of, obviously we've heard about the likes of Marks and Spencer's Co-op, but there's been other smaller companies that I'm aware of who have Grant Thornton and other people coming in, cyber specialists, because things have happened. And obviously companies have a yearly audit which looks for their financial position, but sort of, should there be a case where the processes get audited as well, i.e., I mean the software as well as the process, because a good auditor always asks the question, but then he goes away and checks. It's how far we go, because if the software is blurring out untruths, then it's going to go down the line, but people tend to believe it till you get to a certain point.
And this then goes to the heart of your backup policies, your resilience policies, your business continuity, and what methods have you got in the background to recover from such a thing? Do they work? Have you tested them? Do they include not now just the technical issues, but the issues surrounding the fact that you will be attacked anytime soon? It's not a I might be attacked, but it's a you will be attacked, and are you ready for it? A brave new world.
And in that, there's opportunities for people to make money because there's going to be more audit because of it. And that's developers at the front, but audits at the end.
They're talking about six-figure sums for these ethics officers if anybody wants one. It sounds like a nightmare job to me.
Actually, Chris, just going back to the example you gave of AI being used in UK government.
Yeah.
AI is being used for the benefit system and for vetting benefit claimants. And there's already been proven bias in the AI system. And there are now thousands of people who are trying to claim benefits who are now being investigated unfairly for benefit fraud.
Yeah, and if it's proven that that's wrong, and then it goes to litigation, who's at fault? The software developer, the government department? Who then carries the can for all this? Who then puts it right? There's a lot of questions behind that, and where it goes and how you deal with it. That really these things are implemented without any thought to those areas of oncoming issues that they should be predicting and dealing with.
In that example, where they've used an AI engine to give them a list of possible fraudulent claims, it could have been a whole load of data in a spreadsheet that they analysed and gave them an initial list to investigate. It may be that a percentage of what they investigate proved to be true claims. That's business as usual, isn't it? The AI will be valuable if the amount, if the accuracy of the claims to investigate increases. If it doesn't, then they're no better off and they might be worse off for the money they spent. They don't have to use AI to come up with a list of things to investigate.
That's true.
The data may
problem...
be wrong, and I think what I picked up from you is that in this example, that the data may be wrong because it might have biases that are on criteria that might be regarded unethical. But we could have data that's wrong on criteria that's simply metric. Either way, it's just wrong data. People will want to iron that out, won't they, over time? And the engines that have better input in and give better input out are the ones that will be more successful, won't they?
Yeah, but then it's your definition of better. I mean, one of the problems with artificial intelligence now is we're not just going to take a spreadsheet and look at it and take your source data and manage the figures or whatever. We're going to take your source data and merge it with their source data and the police's source data and the social services source data. We're going to make assumptions about it. We're going to make judgments about it. Are those assumptions correct? Are those judgments correct? Are those sources of data correct? Because we're not just going to look at one source of data now. We're going to look at every source of data we can that can give us that rounded picture.
But aren't we? And apologies for not being on camera. It's hot here and I'm wearing a vest. In my mind,
good man.
In my mind, I'm imagining sort of Bruce Willis in Die Hard. The reality is more like Steptoe and Son, I think. But yeah, so apologies there. But the AI is allowing us to do more quicker. But is it yet allowing us to do something that we couldn't do at a smaller scale? We're just being able to scale up. So where you said there, we take lots of sources of data, that's people are doing that anyway, but the volume they can take and process in the time they're being asked to do manually or through more traditional routines and algorithms means that they have less data to process. But those biases could still be there. Those assumptions they're having to make are still being made even pre-AI, aren't they? I'm poking to see if it's not the mistakes we currently make, but just quicker and bigger.
That one side of it and may be true, but the concern everybody's making now is you get a record and you decide whether it's accurate, not accurate, or whatever. But there is a tendency now to say it came from AI, so it must be right.
Okay.
The assessment and the judgment must be right, and so you're getting to this point now where it can't be questioned, and even if it could, there isn't a route to question it, and it's so convoluted you've got no chance of questioning it unless you questioned it at the start.
Yeah, I agree there. Like a lot of new things. Yes, you're right there. It would be good if in this technology's case, we're able to easily explain to all users in the different sectors the limitations. Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
The problem is the genie's out of the bottle and we're playing catch up. And we need to play catch up faster, is kind of the point a lot of people are making.
There's also the issue, if you have a large language model and that model has aggregated all of the different data sources, how do you get incorrect information in a large language model corrected?
Worse still, how do you get it corrected in all its incantations? Interesting questions, guys, and I kind of think maybe we should leave it there for now, Graham.
Right, yes, fair enough. I'm just checking a question. No, that's fair enough. So thank you, Chris, and thank you everyone for attending. I'm sure everyone found this interesting, and I'll get this posted up on our YouTube channel, so it should be up by Monday. So thank you for attending, and goodbye, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.